So before beginning this video, it's probably worth pointing out that opinion as to the quality of the Young Turks is fairly divided across the internet. Lots of people like them, some less so, and I think that in the case of, in the sense of full disclosure, I should play my hand, so to speak, and just let you all know what I think of them.
Ass! Ass! Piss! Ass! Ass! Ass piss! Piss coming from my ass!
That pretty much sums it up.
Pew Research did a survey of mostly Muslim countries to see what their feelings are about terrorist groups like ISIS. And it should be no surprise to anyone, they don't really like terrorist organizations like ISIS. Let me give you some examples. According to the Washington Post, which analyzed the Pew Research, vast majorities of people polled in 11 majority Muslim countries oppose the Islamic State. Let's show you a really quick graph that gives you all the results. And it'll show you how many or what percentage of people in these countries consider ISIS to be unfavorable. So in Lebanon, it's 100%, Israel, 97%, interestingly enough, Jordan, 94%, you know the rest. As you go down, you can see that the unfavorable statistic decreases. So in Pakistan, for instance, you see that it decreases. Now, Pew Research did explain that a little bit. They say the countries where there were conspicuous numbers in favor were mostly places far removed from the Islamic State's ravages and embroiled in their own polarizing struggles over extremism and militancy.
Yeah.
So before hearing the asses of the round table begin their analysis, let's actually go back and look at those figures for a second, because as usual, they've left out all the interesting stuff.
Ah, shit!
Firstly, the survey only appears to have been done in 11 countries. A large number of Muslim-majority states were excluded for whatever reason, and these include places like Afghanistan, Algeria, Bangladesh, Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Uzbekistan, and others, which is tantamount to saying that the survey excludes the opinions of roughly 1 billion people. And considering how important this issue is, and the range of views we see in the survey itself from Lebanon to Pakistan, it's reasonable to want that opinion before we start making generalizations and saying things like the vast majority of the world's Muslim population believes X. But more importantly, what struck me by this study was just how many people support ISIS. I mean, based on these 11 countries, my calculations make it roughly 45 million people. And 180 million don't knows, undecided. Considering how evil ISIS are, I mean, they're essentially Hitlerites on crack cocaine. These findings are terrifying. And that should be the focus of the discussion. I mean, look, yeah, it could be a lot worse. This isn't a disastrous poll. This isn't going to make me jump off a rooftop. But they're about to move on to talk about how everything is basically hunky-dory. And that's just stupid and irresponsible.
Shitballs!
Yeah, well, I mean, think about the converse. So we look at that and we say, well, how could anyone not know about ISIS? How could you not have a strong established opinion on ISIS? Like, let's go out to the American people and poll them about their views on Boko Haram. Or any number of terrorist organizations or rebel organizations or insurgent organizations in Latin America, South America, Asia, Southeast Asia, India, Pakistan. They wouldn't know anything about it. And in some cases, they might be led to believe through a couple of perhaps misleading pieces of information that the group is a good group. I mean, look, we've had organizations in the Middle East that we've worked with. Back in the 80s, we worked with the Mujahideen. If you'd polled a lot of people in America, they might have thought, well, I heard Reagan say some good stuff about them. I guess they're good people.
Right.
That 15 years later looked pretty fucking stupid. But you can believe that sort of thing when you're not intimately involved in the conflict.
Stupid shit!
First of all, I'm fairly sure if you polled the US of A as to whether or not terrorist organizations were a good thing, you get a pretty unanimous fucking response, all right? But more importantly, of all these people who are undecided or in favor of ISIS, how are they coming to that decision, right? Who or what is persuading them to be so morally confused on this topic? And don't we need to find that out? because this is as much a war of ideas as anything. And you simply brushing off these don't knows and these favourables and sort of in your tone and demeanour kind of equating it to like, oh, we polled the Americas and it turns out, 20% of people don't like Elvis Presley. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's like, it's a bit more fucking serious than that.
Shit! Dumb shit!
Good enough for Rambo. Good enough for me.
Good enough for Rambo.
Rambo.
No, but I mean, this is completely unsurprising, and yet, just in the wake of the Paris attacks, the bleeding obvious that we have to restate over and over and over again, right? Like that ISIS aren't all Muslims.
And my head I'd be scratching while my thoughts were busy hatching if I only had a brain.
Who's saying it's all Muslims? We know it's not all Muslims. Okay? Stop erecting this monolith of straw. We get it. My dentist is a Muslim, right? Liberal guy, lovely chap. We get on like a house on fire. It's obviously not all Muslims. It's just tens of millions. Feel any better?
Dumb bitch!
I saw a tweet this morning from Richard Dawkins, famous atheist, and he linked to a study in the Telegraph, a newspaper from England, that said that 25% of Muslims in England have sympathetic views towards the terrorists in France. And I didn't have time. I was getting in the car. I'm like, really? That sounds kind of high. And then I come in and I see the exact opposite thing. So.
What? No, you don't. Where is England on this chart? Look, dude, if you can't keep up with the conversation, then just don't say anything.
Dumb shit douchebag!
Right. So, I mean, I don't know what article that is. I didn't see that tweet. I haven't read the article that he posted. But this is Pew Research. And, they're a very reputable organization. It is an unbiased organization. And I would trust their analysis, their statistics more than anything else.
Oh, no, you're in good company, mate. Don't worry. Anna Kay to the rescue. She was worried there for a second that you'd look like a total fool. And so decided to chip in and make herself look even worse.
Booge! Balls, bloody vaginal belch.
And look, keep in mind, Muslims that are living in these countries that are affected by ISIS are seeing their own family members murdered, slaughtered by these terrorists. Okay, so that's the reason why you see Syrian refugees trying to come into, European countries and the United States. These people do not have a literal, strict interpretation of the Quran. These are not violent people. These are people trying to escape the violence. Yeah. These are people who have been victims of the very violence that we're talking about on a daily basis. I mean, when you really think about it, ISIS has killed more Muslims than anything else.
And Muslims have done more to fight ISIS than anyone else. I mean, they're on the front lines.
Right.
So the entire thing is, it's basically just trying to get, break out of this us versus them mentality and know that we are all around the world being pulled and suckered by both extremists, right? Yeah. By both sides.
Okay, I don't even know what she's talking about at this point. It's just total gibberish. But what extremists are we being pulled by on our side? What extremists that would be the equivalent of ISIS are you being pulled by on our side? All right, okay, TYT, I will give you what you want, all right? I'll just give it to you. There are genuine bigots who would lump all Muslims into the same camp and hate them on principle. I'm sure they exist, right? But they are so few and far between. To say they represent the common opinion, or the opinion of the politicians or the media or the intellectuals in our countries is just ridiculous. In fact, we have gone out of our way to say, actually, possibly to our detriment, that Islam is completely unrelated to ISIS, right? That they don't even have anything in common, and that militants have perverted an otherwise peaceful religion. We've gone too far in that direction because we're terrified of coming across as bigoted. And you can't equate the odd anti-Islamic hate crime, which we all deplore, with a movement of people that is engaging in mass executions and attempting to reinstate the caliphate. So why don't you just...
Suck my balls!
Yeah. Am I the only one who wanted just like a day of celebrating your neighborhood Muslim community, like rather than war. Am I alone in that? Like,
Probably.
We could probably get like 8%
we could
support.
get, yeah.
I think, yeah.
Because like if Paris just had like a little, like a parade, aren't they good at that? And just like understanding, peace, reconciliation.
I would dance and be merry, life would be a ding-a-dairy if I only had a brain.
Well, they did announce that they're allowing in the 30,000 Syrian refugees immediately after the terrorist attack. So that's the sort of thing.
Right,
Yeah,
that's the
France
sort of
is
thing.
incredible
Meanwhile-
but I say that they're incredible for doing that. They're doing the right thing. I mean, it shouldn't be considered incredible. It should be considered the right thing to do, what's expected of you as a country.
Butthole, titties, balls, cocksucker.
I've heard it said these guys are the progressives' answer to Fox News. I concur, Internet. I concur.
There are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world today. Of course, not all of them are radicals. The majority of them are peaceful people. The radicals are estimated to be between 15 to 25%, according to all intelligence services around the world. That leaves 75% of them peaceful people. But when you look at 15 to 25% of the world Muslim population, you're looking at 180 million to 300 million people dedicated to the destruction of Western civilization. That is as big of the United States. So why should we worry about the radicals, 15 to 25%? Because it is the radicals that kill. Because it is the radicals that behead and massacre. When you look throughout history, when you look at all the lessons of history, most Germans were peaceful. Yet the Nazis drove the agenda. And as a result, 60 million people died. Almost 14 million in concentration camps. 6 million were Jews. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Russia, most Russians were peaceful as well. Yet the Russians were able to kill 20 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at China, for example, most Chinese were peaceful as well. Yet the Chinese were able to kill 70 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Japan prior to World War II, most Japanese were peaceful as well. Yet Japan was able to butcher its way across Southeast Asia, killing 12 million people, mostly killed with bayonets and shovels. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. On September 11th in the United States, we had 2.3 million Arab Muslims living in the United States. It took 19 hijackers, 19 radicals to bring America down to its knees, destroy the World Trade Center, attack the Pentagon, and kill almost 3,000 Americans that day. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. So for all our powers of reasons and us talking about moderate and peaceful Muslims, I'm glad you're here. But where are the others speaking out? And since you are the only Muslim representative, save the applause till the end. Thank you. Thank you. And since you're the only Muslim representative in here, you took the limelight instead of speaking about why our government, and I assume, are you an American? You're an American citizen. So as an American citizen, you sat in this room and instead of standing up and saying a question or asking something about our 4 Americans that died and what our government is doing to correct the problem, you stood there to make a point about peaceful, moderate Muslims. I wish you brought 10 with you to question about how we can hold our government responsible. It is time we take political correctness and throw it in the garbage where it belongs and stop calling it fair.